Welcome everyone to the first podcast by Muse Games. We did discuss this format a couple weeks now, and this will be our first foray into a new format we're trying out for our Friday Dev Fireside chats. Just as a reminder for those who are watching and listening to this, we will be having live chats still the last week of every month. But for this month, we want to see how this format works for us and if it's something we want to continue exploring. So we'll see how this goes. But tonight we have myself, we have Eric from the office, and we have Liz who will be joining us as well. So, hey everyone. Just to cover a lot of the stuff that's been going on this week, Eric, do you want to give us a little filler in for the events that's been going on for this week?
Yeah, so the past couple of weeks have been pretty crazy. We had a bunch of promotions and like sales going on. We did a thing with Humble Bundle and a couple thousand people just happened to stroll in, say what's up. We did we got a bunch more servers, but there was a lot more people than expected. So there were a couple of hiccups here and there. And it's also interesting to see what that number of players does to the balancing mechanisms that we have in play. Everything seems to be operating and doing its thing as we expect, but from the user's perspective, some things don't seem fair, but rest assured that everything is going as expected. So we're right now we're dealing with the aftermath of all of that, trying to do our best and maintain retention with all the new players that we have in here. And with that, we also are preparing our November patch coming out towards the end of this month.
Great. You did mention some of the interesting trends going on with the numbers we've been seeing. So I guess for players that are not familiar with how battle progressions work, because I know that's something that gets affected by player activity.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of cover a little bit about that, what goes on there, and what we expected to see during that period?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, so I'm not going to cover all the nuances of it, but we did think pretty long and hard and tested this for many, many months. So we do our best to track the active players in every faction. And of course, there are metrics deciding whether or not a player is active. So when a faction has many more active players, the number of effort required to conquer a territory or defend it will increase or decrease. Basically, the system is trying to target approximately, if you were to assume that players were putting in a steady amount of time into the game and playing for their faction, the system will try to approximate about 48 hours of time to turn a territory over. And it was actually pretty interesting. Someone did some calculations posted a picture on Discord, and they came their calculations came very close. So when I saw them, I was like, yeah, that's actually a good sign for us. So everything is working.
Awesome.
Of course. Yeah, and of course, some players are confused, oh man, the Arashi, we have millions of points. It's well, just coincidentally, all the new players who came in, upwards of some thousands, decided to join the Arashi League, and that's why they have so many points. The system there is some lead time for it to update the active player count per faction. So let's say a lot of players join the Arashi in the first 24 hours of this player spike, but then it drops, the activity drops down. Unfortunately, the system does take some time to update those numbers, but once it does, any new territory that opens up should have the appropriate effort reflected by their new active count. So there's a lot of cogs and gears working behind the scenes, but with a little patience, things should even out in the end.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of the players went with Arashi. Is that the most popular faction recently, or at least overall? I think it's still Anglia, isn't it?
Well, just at least from what I saw, the population just so happens, it was Arashi. We got a lot of not necessarily complaints, but inquiries why do we have millions of efforts and these other guys only have a couple 100,000? What's going on? That's so not fair. But again, it should take 48 hours for each faction's play amount to conquer a territory. So it
Yeah.
should be close to even.
So the progression scales to the amount of players accordingly for each faction.
Yeah.
As far as the active players go, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So you mentioned the 20th of November patch. We did have a patch last week, actually, on Friday, and we didn't really cover too much on that in terms of streams. But do you want to cover anything in particular that was worth noting from that particular patch?
Yeah. So it was mostly some retention pain points. Like there was some confusion with especially novices of like what certain features were. We have those like novice bot matches, so there's some confusion of exactly what was going on with those, and better explanation and tooltips for like what all the buttons do. So those were a lot of UI changes that went in, and hopefully that makes the experience a lot smoother for people. And there were also some balance changes that got thrown in there as well.
Cool. We also had the introduction of the failsafe tool, which is
that's right.
I guess that's a pretty big thing too for PvP, because that's a whole new gameplay mechanic.
Yes.
Yeah. I was actually surprised when Richard and the rest of the experimental crew proposed that. I was like, "Are you guys sure?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. I've been testing it out this week, and it seems with players, it seems to work out kind of nicely. It has its weaknesses, but it has its strengths too, which is nice actually. So definitely refreshing from the standard tools that we normally have. I think the last time we touched engineering tools was a few years ago. I think it was Extinguisher and Chemspray.
Yeah, those are probably the ones. We rarely touch the engineering stuff.
Yeah, they're just too perfect. But moving forward then, looking forward to the next update that we have planned the 20th. You want to reveal anything and any hints on what we might be expecting for that one?
I can give a couple of hints. So there's going to be a new King of the Hill map for PvP. I guess the surprise is which one that will be on. For those of you who help us test, you guys probably already know that should be available on DevApp as we speak. Let's see what other stuff. There are going to be a bunch of balance changes proposed by the experimental crew, so those are going in. That includes some ammo, some ship stuff. I think that's it. There's also going to be some of the class achievements for Alliance. So you'll be able to unlock a decal, a new victory pose, as well as a golden repair tool.
Oh, I guess we can go into more detail the closer we get to the update then, so we can know a little bit more about that next week as well. But yeah, some exciting stuff to look forward to then. We've also been doing a lot of work with PlayStation this week, and perhaps Liz, if you want to give us some insights on what you've been dealing with, because it's been pretty busy on your end, as I understand it.
It has been. It's been mostly behind the scenes stuff, getting ready for PSX, which is coming up in Anaheim. Got to stress the word Anaheim there. Howard keeps messing that one up live.
Oh, really?
Which is not LA.
It's not Los Angeles. It's Anaheim.
Right. So mostly just presentation work then?
Oh, yeah.
For that.
The stuff nobody really thinks about when they go to conventions, but that actually takes a lot of work.
Yeah, and they've been pretty generous with the booth size for us.
Yes, we have a 12 by 24 booth.
Like feet? Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're probably on like the metric system.
The metric system. Yeah.
Miko's over there trying to math. He's like, wait, what is that?
Well, I mean, that's like something like, I don't know, 8 meters maybe. I don't know. I can't math right now. Yeah, it's pretty like sizable as far as that goes.
I don't need to know that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but for those of you who are in California and want to check it out, you should check out the PSX, because that has us featured there with the PlayStation version of Guns of Icarus Online.
In Anaheim.
So, in Anaheim, yes. Emphasis on Anaheim. Yeah. Has there been anything else that's been really exciting for you on this, on your front for this week? Besides the PSX, or has that really dominated your
That dominated my yesterday. It's mostly working on
Yeah.
submissions. We are working on revamping the Amsterdam website. So I think we
Mm-hmm.
finally have it set what is going into that, and the changes are going to start going through, which is luckily something that I don't personally have to do because I don't know how. But
Right.
yeah, so that's going to be happening within the next, hopefully, couple days. That'll be finished, and then submissions for other things. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what they are. I don't know what the
No, we'll
rules
keep
are.
it vague. It's fine. We'll keep it vague. Yeah. But we have been going through submission processes with PlayStation, so that is a thing that people are aware of. Yeah. Um, okay, so I guess aside from that, we have also been doing these Tuesday coffee hour with the devs, which is something I host with a lot of the players for Q&A. Mostly light level chat about anything they're curious about in the game. And some of the questions they have, they wanted to have me ask for the stream. So
Okay.
the first one here is, does Muse team plan to add a new female voice pack, either for the market or just in general? Is that something we are looking forward to in the future?
Not actively, but of course, if someone decides to submit their own voice pack on the store, we will definitely take a look at it. As of recently, we haven't gone out of our way to look for voice actors to create new ones. We've sort of just relied on, what people develop in the store.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are really gung ho about it and want a female voice pack, definitely we're excited to see what people have in the store submission.
Okay. Cool. All right. So that's something to consider for you guys. If you want to help us out, be sure to submit it and send an email in too, so we can check it out, because we'll definitely take a look at it. So another question that we got is, besides the Amsterdam game and Guns of Icarus Online, is Muse working on any new titles, or is it just those two titles right now?
Right now, those are our two bread and butter. Well, I guess Guns is only really the bread and butter because it's out now. Amsterdam, hopefully will be moderately successful on mobile when it is finally released. But yeah, we're putting a lot of manpower behind it right now. Most of our engineering team in Taiwan is working on it, including the extra time that we have from the developers in the New York office. Other than that, we do have a couple of projects that are in like highly experimental phase right now. Can't really say too much about them because we have really no idea what's going on with them and just trying different things.
Right. Right. So do players have any expectation when Amsterdam might be expected to release? Is there sometime next year or sometime down the road? TBA?
Yeah, no, we're trying to shoot for next year. Optimistically first half of 2018. But again, it's all subject to because since we're targeting mobile and iOS just so happened to release iOS 11, so because of those things, we have to spend some extra time and optimize even further because we spent no time doing that. So we have to do that at some point. And of course, there are like features that still need to get brushed up. Like every time we bring it to events, we get a lot of new feedback. So this is like at least for on feature set wise, it's like the final push to get all the like last major things to hopefully address some of the feedback that we've gotten.
Right. Players are also pretty curious about how the composition and activity is within the team for each of these projects. So at this current time, normally, is there a rough number of how many individuals are working on Guns of Icarus at any given time during the week? Or does that switch off between everyone, just invariably at different times?
A lot of it is switching off. For example, myself, I switch off constantly, depending on where we are in the gun cycle. So, for example, if we're coming into an update, like we're freezing for the patch today, so I had a lot of guns related stuff early on this week. Other people, a part of the team, they might spend more of their time working on guns, especially like, for example, Matt. He's working on, the PS4 stuff, so he's pretty much full time on guns. And then, of course, like if people who are like experimenting with other projects, if we need their expertise to come back into guns, of course, they will be more than willing to drop whatever they're doing and help us out wherever needed.
Cool.
So definitely there's like a contingency of us who are mostly full time on guns, and then the rest of us are kind of like, in and out as
auxiliary.
needed.
Yeah. So we did actually we had a new map maker join our team recently, and we have been getting some feedback about ideas for different maps and things like that. Sea harbors, coastal maps, daytime maps for different existing maps that we have. Can we expect some more like unique map environments in the future? Perhaps soon?
So yeah, actually, the biggest problem with the map pipeline is that it's very hands-on. So if we and we only have we have the one guy, Eugene, who does most of it. So if we want him to work on other stuff, basically he can't do map stuff. So this is why we hired Zoe in Taiwan, who's helping us out now. So the map that we're currently in pretty close to dev app testing with players is a defense map, a smaller defense map. I'm not exactly sure. I think we're leaning towards a more desert theme again. But of course, if people have suggestions about what kind of environment they want to see, definitely let us know. I know people on DevApp have tested a really rough version of an infiltration map that I was working on. So that might be something we work on in the near future. But just to quell people's expectations a little bit. The map design process still takes a bunch of time. There's the prototyping phase, and then finally we have to make the terrain and test that, and then test all the obstacles that go in to build all the obstacles. So it's a time-intensive process. So it's not like we're going to be flipping maps every other week,
It's not easy, right?
Yeah, it takes a really long time, unfortunately.
Okay.
A new desert map would be nice for all those new Arashi players.
Exactly.
We're getting a lot of different ideas. We have a lot of these ideas on our ideas board, and this is something that we always check out, and we, of course, assign these to different team members so we can keep that in the pipeline. It just takes time. So.
Yeah, just to put it out there, if people even have suggestions on actual map layout or design of where the paths are, put the point here or whatever, that's cool too. I can always use that as a building block for future maps and things like that. So whatever ideas people have, just record it and we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess as a final question here, but kind of an offshoot of what we've been discussing, and although a lot of these ideas have been recorded on our ideas board, it is an interesting concept to touch on. Some players who have really enjoyed both either the PvP or the PvE experience are interested in and wondering, if we have some ideas on perhaps, because we do have a custom lobby concept that we have going on in the background, but that's mainly towards PvP, and some of the players were interested in learning if there was some kind of way to institute a hardcore mode where you remove the hit markers, there's no outlines for ships, target icons are missing. It's a strictly visual experience. Would this be something that could be possible in the future? Would it be something you would consider, I guess?
I mean, technically, yeah. I think turning off the UI shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is interesting. One of the harder things that I don't think we can actually do is, or it'll take a significant amount of work, is friendly fire. That's something that I've always wanted, and people on the team are that's actually kind of interesting. But the way that our projectiles work, it's going to take a ton of time. But I think the visual thing, that's a little bit easier. So basically, the easier it is, the more likely we'll do it. That's usually how it is.
You know what I want? Yeah. I want a super hardcore mode where it's PvP and PvE.
Total free for all.
Yeah, total free for all. That's what I want.
With teams, though. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said hardcore.
If it's two teams and the AI just shoots whomever, they're the third team, actually that just might work. We've had talks about free for all or whatever, but then that we need multiple teams, which on a really low level, our UI like doesn't support anymore. We only support like 2 real teams. So if we like that, the AI is like a cheat. They don't need like a crew slot or whatever or anything. They just spawn them in. They just do whatever the heck they want.
So it's something to consider then. Interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, we'll put it on the ideas board because that does sound pretty interesting nonetheless. So patch it on. But yeah, so I think we covered all of the questions and a lot of the news that's been going on this week. So it's been pretty exciting for us. We are going to continue doing this next week as well. So, and we'll see if you have any questions for us, guys, send them to feedback or just let me know when we have the coffee with the dev on Tuesday, and then I'll be sure to carry the questions on into the stream as well, so you guys can get it covered by some of our specialists from the team themselves. And again, if you are interested in participating in our games and events, we will be having our Dev Games on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 p.m. UTC. And we obviously have a lot of events going on over the weekend too. With the Iron Fork tonight, let's see, that'll be 10 o'clock my time, so that's something like 4 p.m. Eastern. And then there's the DevApp testing, which will be around 5 p.m. Eastern, along with more DevApp testing tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. So it's a little more accommodating for different people, depending on where you're at. So, and of course, we have the Saturday Chaos Skirmish and the Sunday Community Skirmish for their respective days. Yeah, a lot of events, a lot of things going on. So check them all out. You can see them on the forums, or you can even go into the game and check out the community events there as well if you want to find out more information. We also have information listed on our start screen. So lots of places, lots of things. But again, thank you for joining us, guys, for our very unique experience with the podcast, and hopefully we'll see how this goes. So yeah, see you next time, guys. Take care.
Bye.